Hey, good morning, Midland. I hope everything has been going as best as it can during this crazy time that we're learning a lot about and learning a lot about each other, probably within our families if you are stuck in the same house with your family for some time. But I hope that it is going well, that you're staying well. Prayers every day for that, and they will continue. With that being said, you probably are aware that we're going to have to change plans probably a little bit more for a longer period of time. At this point, we've been trying to find the best way to do what we could do just on a quick notice and for a short period of time, but it's looking more and more like this may take a little bit more of our time to get past as a nation and around the world. And so because of that, we are now working hard to not just be reactive to what all is going on with this virus spreading throughout the world, but now looking to find ways to be very proactive on it. These past couple of weeks have really just been a matter of trying to get whatever we could done to keep having church. But we are now working with the leadership of the church here to find the best ways to get ministry once again back into full swing, just in a different kind of way. And so you'll get more information on that through emails, which brings me to the second point. If you have not signed up for emails, now would be a great time to do it. You can follow a link right there on the description for the service here today. Take you to our website and give you a chance to fill out that information there. That way we can get you on the email list to get the email one or two usually each week to catch you up on what's going on at the church, where we are, and to get you the links for these feeds for the services each week as well. So just want to make sure that you're aware of that. Announcement stuff, make sure you're up to date on those things as well. One is that we have been having a way to text to give for a little while here, and this has become very important for us now. You can text into the number 706-222-1014, 706-222-1014 to give your offering here this morning, or really anytime, obviously, that you want to. You can go to our website as well, and there's a place on there for online giving. We are also looking at, if you'd like to mail in, you can mail in your gifts to the church at P.O. Box 118, Midland, Georgia, 31820. You can find that information. The emails have been coming out. So just take note of that if you want to continue to be able to give to support the ministries that we're doing here at the church. That is going to be the three ways that we have available at this time to do it. Also, we're still planning, though we're not sure if it's going to be able to happen, for our Easter egg hunt. And so on Easter Sunday is when we do the big hunt after the 11 o'clock service. Obviously, there's a big question mark on that, but we're going to see how it goes. If you're able, go on and buy you up some eggs if you'd like. And that way, if we can't do it here, you can do it at your house and hide plenty of nice, good eggs around your house for you to go find yourself, or for your kids, or for your spouse, whoever happens to be around at the time, to go do some egg hunting as well. We are so grateful that we continue to do ministry here at the church. One of the things that's coming up is our opportunity to help out the ministry, Focus, up in Hamilton. Our plan was on Palm Sunday to be able to bring in 40 items from each family to be able then to take to help feed the people throughout that community. But since we are not going to be meeting on Palm Sunday now, we are looking to find a way for you to bring that in. So if you've got some, hold on to them if you're able to. We know the shelves are getting empty out there, but if you're able to pick up some items, if we're having a hard time getting food, I can only imagine how it is for people who are fighting to find food even during the ordinary times. And so if you're able, go in and pile them up. We're going to find a way that we can get all those together to then take up to help that ministry continue right here in our area. One of the things I want to make sure you're aware of before we close on announcements today is there are two feeds for the service. Two feeds. They're happening simultaneously. So you can go to a traditional feed, which will then have traditional elements to worship, or you can go to a modern feed, which will have modern elements to worship, including the worship band here at the church. You need to make sure you're on the one that you want to be on. Check the description. In the description of this cast that you're watching right now, it will tell you either traditional worship or modern worship. Traditional worship will have responsive reading, the Lord's Prayer in there, and then the modern worship is going to have the band playing through a couple of songs that you know and probably love as we're preparing our hearts for worship here this morning. So check that, and let's get ready for a great time worshiping an amazing, awesome God.
Well, good morning, my little friends. We are missing you here at Midland, and I know that some of you out there have had some fun birthdays in this last week. So I want to take a minute and wish those of you that have had birthdays, happy birthday. So Emma Kate turned 9, and Ruthie turned 5, Sebastian turned 6, Ellie turned 4, Loudon turned 9, and Jonathan turned 5. I know that this is not the birthday that you wanted. This is not big parties and all that, but I promise you your parents did something amazing for you. I just know it. I can't wait to hear about it, and I can't wait for you guys to come back to the church and celebrate with us, because you know what? This building is not as much fun without y'all. But I made this really cool packet for you guys last week, and I don't know if your parents showed it to you or not, because I forgot to tell them what to do with it. So I came up with a better plan. I'm just going to tell you guys what to do with it. So there's this packet that's on the website, and you're going to have to take your mom and dad to the website because, you know, they're mom and dad, and sometimes they need help. And I want you to make them download it, and then you're going to find a place where you guys can help them watch the same videos we watch here at church. Those cute little cartoons that tell the story about what we're doing here and show the Bible story with you. And then you can even open up a Bible if you have one and find the story in the Bible. The packet has a place for games and for crafts, and I know some of you don't like to color. I know some of you don't like glue, and that's okay. Do what you want to do, but at the end of the day, I want you each to show your mom and dad how amazing you are, because one of the things that we know is that Jesus told us to have faith like a child, which every one of you is going to be really, really good at because, I mean, come on, you're kids. You've got this. I want you to help your mom and dad to intentionally remember to celebrate the things that God's doing in your life this week. Help them to see the good things and teach them what it means to believe like a kid, because y'all got this. So I have this really weird looking box in front of me, and this is called a diorama, which is just really a big word for model. And I have stuffed it full of goodies, and you're going to find the directions on how to do this. And I wanted to show it to you because I don't want your moms and dads to tell you you can't do it. So I'm going to pull all my goodies out of my box because there's so many goodies in the box. So all you need is any box that you can find. Doesn't matter. This happened to be an Amazon box because we all love Amazon, even though they're shipping a little bit slower. You're going to need to cut a hole in the top of the box, and I'm going to tell you why. Because in our story this week that's from Luke, it is a story where Jesus is preaching, and there is a crowd that has just gathered around and gathered around and gathered around, where there's a man that is paralyzed. And if you don't know what that means, I want you to look it up. But his friends came up with the idea that if they could just get him to Jesus, they knew that Jesus could help him. So Jesus is in this house, and he's preaching, and the friends can't quite get to him because the crowd is just too big. So they actually took him up on the roof. And they did this really, really cool thing. So Jesus is in the house and he's preaching. I didn't do a very good job of getting my Jesus in there, but I'm going to find him and I'm going to put him in there. Maybe he's already in there. He is. He fell over. Jesus didn't fall over in the story, though, okay? So Jesus is in the house and he is preaching, and there's a crowd. And once the friends got their friend that's paralyzed up on the top of the house, they did this really cool thing. They took ropes, they cut a hole in somebody's house. We're not going to ask them how they felt about it. And they lowered their friend down. And when Jesus got there and they saw what they had done, one, he told their friends, like, that's pretty cool. You're forgiven. But then he also told that man that was laying there to get up and walk away. And he did. He just got up and he left. And he went on with his life. And that's faith that you guys as kids get to have every day. I know that life's a little different right now for each of you, and you're not going to school, and you're not getting to do the things that are sometimes fun for us. But I hope that you will find things in this packet that help make life feel a little bit more fun for you. That you will find time to teach your mom and dad what it means to be excited to go out and love Jesus. And I want you to practice loving other people and to show kindness. And there's a lot of ways to be kind this week in the packet. And one of the things I want you to do is look for helpers in this world. We have so many helpers that are helping us get our mail. They are helping make birthday cakes. They are taking care of people at the hospital. And I want you to find ways to say thank you to them. There's some ideas in the packet, but I know that each and every one of you has some even more amazing ways to say thank you and creative ways to make sure your neighborhood is staying positive in this time that's a little bit scary. And it's okay to be scared. But you know what? Jesus has got that. And he's got all of you too. Take a minute. We're going to say a prayer. And I look forward to seeing you back here at the church soon. Dear God, thank you for loving us, for helping us to see who you are, to know who you are. Help us to be that bright light in our families, to help guide our parents and our brothers and our sisters and other family members to love you the way that you have taught us to love, and to love just like a child. In your heavenly name, amen.
Alone in my sorrow and dead in my sin, lost without hope and no place to begin. Your love made a way and let mercy come in. When death was arrested and my life began. Now ash was redeemed, only beauty remains. And my orphan heart was given name. My morning grew quiet and my feet rose to dance. When death was arrested and my life began. Oh, your grace so free washes over me. You have made me new. Now life begins with you. It's your endless love pouring down on us. You have made me new. Now life begins with you. Released from my chains, I'm a prisoner no more. My shame was ransomed, grateful. He canceled my death and he called me his friend. When death was arrested and my life began. Oh, your grace so free washes over me. You have made me new. Now life begins with you. It's your endless love pouring down on us. You have made me new. Now life begins with you. Our Savior displayed on a criminal's cross. In darkness rejoices, though heaven had lost. But then Jesus arose with our freedom in hell. When death was arrested and my life began. When death was arrested and my life began. Oh, your grace so free washes over me. You have made me new. Now life begins with you. It's your endless love pouring down on us. You have made me new. Now life begins with you.
Well, this morning we're continuing on with this series looking at the famous last words of Jesus as he has come into Jerusalem and is heading to the cross. And we found that right before he gets to Jerusalem, he is gathered up with a group of people and he asked this question to two different folks. And we found that this is a question that's probably a pretty good question for us. And that's this: if asked, "What do you want me to do for you?" what would you say? You see, Jesus asked them, and now for us, where we are today, this would be a great question for someone to ask us as well, right? And the question for us to look at is, what would you say? If someone said to you, "What do you want me to do for you?" how would you respond? You know, as I was thinking about it this past week, if I were to ask someone, "What can I do for you?" as a pastor today, there'd be all kinds of different responses, no doubt. But I remember when we first found out that church was going to have to be canceled and we weren't going to be able to have this full gathering in the building like we're so used to. We'd have to find new ways to do it. I began to think, what is it then that's going to be expected? How could we handle this? And these ideas start coming into my head. And as I was walking around the park just the other day, I saw this guy sitting out with his Bible in a chair like this. And there's about, probably 8 to 10 other people out in their chairs, sitting around in a big circle, nice and spread out with their Bibles in their lap. I'm like, hey, there's church. We could do it differently, right? We could have this gathering outside on the lawn of the church here. Bring your own chair, 10 at a time, maybe 9 at a time, because I got to count too. Come in, we're going to gather up in a circle and do church on the hour, every hour. And I started thinking about it. If we were to do that, church on the hour, every hour, and try to get all of our just average attendance of folks that make it on a Sunday morning, we would only be out there for about 20 hours. So it'd be a little bit of a long day for me, but a great day for everyone else, right? We would have a sunrise service, a sunset service. We'd have a blistering hot service the way it has felt a couple of these days. We'd all get a suntan. Others of us would be falling asleep at night, trying to stay awake and probably making a campfire in the middle, but not roasting marshmallows to share. Church would be so different. And it is so different right now, isn't it? As we look at all that's going on and how it would be, we've come to this conclusion that for the time being, we're going to record sermons, which brings me to this other point. I have never been recording sermons before, live on camera, unless I had to, because I just don't feel easy with that. I mean, have y'all looked around and seen these people that have their services recorded live all the time and then posted up to see? I mean, there's some really good preachers out there. And so there's this side of me that's going, if I start doing that, I'm like throwing myself into the same group of these great pastors out there who preach and like people just want to hear them preach another sermon and another sermon. I'm just a normal pastor. There's some people that are looking forward to me preaching again. There's some people thinking, when's he going to finish up so I can get out of here, right? And then there's that other side of preachers as well. There's the really good ones I see that I'm going, I could never in any way compete. If somebody wants to watch something online, they're just going to go watch them. They're not going to come find me. But then that other side, have you ever seen other pastors that put stuff out there and you're looking for somebody new, someone different to listen to, and you pull up someone who's recording and you go, why in the world did you ever think to record a sermon? That's my other fear. Is that not only would I not measure up to that one group that is really good, but then I would somehow get categorized into that group of the ones that even when I see it, I go, please, please, God, never let me preach a sermon like that, right? Yeah. I begin to compare myself. In some ways I'm going, I never can be that good. And others going, I never want to be grouped into that group of preachers. Which brings me to what we're going to talk about here this morning. Ever thought someone just doesn't measure up? Kind of like me. Like when I'm watching these people, record their sermons and post videos online and I go, we can't afford the best equipment in the world, that's for sure, but at least get somebody who has a steadier hand to hold that phone for you while they record you and you post it up, right? Thought someone just doesn't measure up. As you look at your life, you've probably been there before, and you have been with someone, maybe as the supervisor over a department, the director, someone in charge, that had to then work with people who just didn't measure up. And it's so much worse if you're the one who works in the department with a director or someone who doesn't measure up, is it not? And you have all these things that begin to play through your head depending on what kind of authority you have and what you can do. Whether this person needs to be fired and you need to move on this to fire them, or maybe this is someone who just needs to be written up and corrected and give them another chance. Or if you're on the other side of it, not in the work environment, but you go out somewhere and customer service is so poor. Everybody has that experience, right? You're going, I can't believe it. What do you call yourself? What kind of company are you? What kind of person are you? Who hires people like you? And all these things start going through your head. It's like, all right, what could I do to solve this problem? What if I go in there and report them to their supervisor, since I'm not their supervisor anymore, and let them know what a sorry employee they are? What if I call up that number that says, how's my driving, and tell them how I really think their driving is? Ever been there before? Yeah. Okay, well, how about this other question? Ever thought you just don't measure up? Yeah, it's one thing to be looking out there at other people that don't measure up, but some of us have this problem, don't we? We go through, and some on a regular basis are just going, I just don't measure up. I can't do it. I'm not capable of doing it to the degree, kind of like I felt about doing videos, and you're welcome to post in there like, Stephen, keep working at it. Jesus loves you. I just don't measure up. And so since I don't measure up, I'm just not going to give it a shot. I'm not going to try it out. I'm not going to do anything about it because I don't want to in any way look like that. Which brings us to kind of where we're going to be today. You may think that, and I'm not going to do anything like it. I'm not going to move forward with this until you just don't have another option. And you get to that place where you go, I don't care how good I am or how bad I am. There's no way I'm going to try to move forward because now I have to. Our text today, we're going to come across Jesus. And he's going to have a run-in with two people, both of whom fall into one of these categories. I want you to see from their life what we can take maybe for ours as we begin to look at how do we really measure up. And not only how do we measure up, but what about as we judge all those other people out there? We're here in Mark chapter 14. Verse 1, we're going to get reading now. Jesus has made it through the day and has gone in to a home to grab some dinner, and that's where we pick it up. Now, the Passover and the Festival of Unleavened Bread were only 2 days away. This is the big celebration, the very reason all those people were coming into Jerusalem in the first place, and the reason that Jesus and his disciples actually were coming in for the Passover meal there in Jerusalem. And the chief priests and the teachers of the law were scheming to arrest Jesus secretly, and who we've talked about from the beginning, and kill him. Not only do they want to arrest him, get him off the streets where he is obviously winning the crowd over at this point, but they want to make sure they end it all. This is a pretty extreme response, and kill him. But not during the festival, I said, or the people may riot. Why? Because Jesus has won the crowd's favor. Everybody is loving them some Jesus right now. When he shows up, other people show up to hear what's going on. As he challenges their authority, he's winning favor from others. And so they say, you know what? We're not going to do anything about it right now. While he was in Bethany, reclining at the table in the home of Simon the leper, which, by the way, we don't know exactly who Simon the leper is. We don't have a good story. People have tried to come up with all kinds of who this person is. We just don't know. But he's at his home, Simon, who used to have leprosy, we think, but Jesus probably healed him, and now he doesn't have leprosy, but they became friends because Jesus healed him. A woman came with an alabaster jar of very expensive perfume made of nard. Now, so here she comes in with very expensive perfume. Probably not a poor person who spent all of her money. It doesn't say that anywhere, even though people sometimes assume that. This is probably a woman who has access to some of this, has good things. But here she brings in something very expensive to this party. She broke the jar and poured the perfume on his head. Now, that's kind of crazy. I don't know how I would feel, but if I'm sitting as a guest in a house somewhere and we're enjoying a good meal, maybe the meal's all finished up and we're just sitting around talking and somebody comes in and busts open a jar and then pours stuff all over my head, I think I'd be pretty upset. I'm just saying. I don't know how you would feel. Go on and think about it a little bit. I'd be a little upset. But the deal is, when this was happening back in the day, this wasn't understood to be, oh, that's weird, dumping oil on somebody's head. This was actually one of the things they would do for a king. And so for her to do this is in some ways saying she has tons of respect and recognizes Jesus as the very thing Jesus is claiming to be, right? The coming of the King, the one who reigns over all, the Son of God. Pretty big move right here on her part. Now listen to how people respond. Some of those present were saying indignantly to one another. I love that way. All right, some of them are sitting around going, I can't believe it. Do you see what just happened? This is like a great response that you get at the party. Some of them, not all of them, are saying this to each other. Why this waste of perfume? This is a wasteful act. You see what's going on here? She had this great stuff, and she could have put a little bit on him to show some respect, right? But she pours the whole thing on. What a wasteful thing to do. Have you ever been around people before? And when you're around the very good people, we call them, very noble, very good Christians, and you feel like you need to up your game of how you act as well because you want to fit in with them at the table. I wonder how many of them are like, we're sitting down with Jesus, the man who is blowing it up right now over there at the temple. Everybody's loving him as he's preaching and calling folks out, and we get him at the table. We need to put on our best face. What is she doing? What a waste. We could do so much better with that. And here's what she says. It could have been sold for more than a year's wages and the money given to the poor. Doesn't that sound good? So righteous, right? I'm just here looking out for the poor. I'm just trying to see in the best interest of others. And here she goes, wasting it. You know how much that's worth, Jesus? I'm saying, maybe they mean it, or maybe they're just putting on a show. Because, listen how Jesus responds. And they rebuked her harshly. Leave her alone, said Jesus. I love this one. Why are you bothering her? I don't know how to translate that word exactly, but if that's what it means, that is awesome. All right? Leave her alone, Jesus said. Why are you bothering her? They're doing all this to put on a show to look good. We're going to call her out. She's wasted. She's not doing what's right, is she, Jesus? No, she's not. Now look at that. And Jesus looks at him and says, leave her alone. Why are you bothering her? She has done a beautiful thing to me. Now, if you're reading along in your Bible, it reads a little bit differently. There's another translation that says she's doing a good thing. I think it's kind of how it says it. And that sounds okay, but this is so much better. It's not just a good thing. This is a beautiful thing to me. The poor you'll always have with you, and you can help them anytime you want, but you will not always have me. And Jesus begins to lay this out again. This isn't the first time he's been making a little bit of a call of what he's going to do. In fact, in the Gospel of Mark, it comes up 3 times before this. He has told them, look, I'm not always going to be with you. They're going to arrest me. They're going to crucify me. That's how it's going to happen. Right before this week got started, right before he gets asked the questions and he says, what do you want me to do for you? Jesus has just predicted his death again, even in the Gospel of Mark. He goes on, he says, she did what she could. It's huge. We know that back in the day, women had a different role in society than what we're allowed today, as we have much more equal rights for men and women. That we're still working on it. I got that. But back in the day, women, they didn't even, in the Gospel of Mark, you got to know that women didn't even show up outside of the house for stories. The stories in the Gospel of Mark record women doing something inside a home somewhere when Jesus is around. Isn't this crazy? And so this woman who has none of the rights like we celebrate that are so much better today, looks over and says, she did what she could. She may be held back in however many ways we can come up with. Plug it in for yourself. Ways that you're held back. I'm not as talented. I'm not as gifted. I'm not as wealthy. I'm not as educated. I don't know as many people. I'm not with the right folks. Whatever it is. But Jesus looks at her and says, she did what she could. And this verse goes on. She poured perfume on my body beforehand to prepare for my burial. And this is a huge statement. Jesus says, I've been telling you how it's going to go. And I want you to know, not only have I been telling you this and preparing for what is to come, it is now upon us beforehand to prepare for my burial, which is coming up. She has just prepared me for what is now going to be. In verse 9, truly I tell you, wherever the gospel is preached throughout the world, what she has done will also be told in memory of her. And he got that right, didn't he? Still reading this story about a woman who is so looked down on in this story of what she did at that time. Verse 10. Then Judas Iscariot, one of the 12. Well, you got to remember, Judas is one of Jesus' 12 disciples, the closest friends, the ones that had been with Jesus in ministry now for these past years. And the story is taking a big shift. Went to the chief priest to do what? To betray Jesus to them. A woman who comes and pours out onto Jesus, and now a friend who is leaving to go betray him. They were delighted to hear this and promised to do what? Give him money. So he watched for an opportunity to hand him over. For money. You know, in this story, we can grab something from here that I think is so helpful for us in our lives between these two main characters that have this story recorded right here together. One gives for Jesus. This woman comes and brings what she has for Jesus. And one gets for Jesus. And Judas agrees to betray Jesus to make a little bit of money. And we don't know exactly how much it is at this point in the story here. But we find out that he's in it to get what he can get. Which brings me to my question here for all of you. Why are you here? What has brought you to this moment? Why are you tuning in? Why are you watching this? It's because you do this on Sunday mornings and it's Sunday morning for you and you're doing it. That's awesome. I'm so glad you are. It's because you're like me and you're going, this is crazy what's going on and there's nothing I can do to control this around the world or even within my community. I'm just doing the best I can within my house and within my own life to control this virus that's going around. I just need to be reminded that there is a good and there is a great God. Are you in it and watching and trying out this whole thing for what you can get out of it? Or is it to help prepare you to be someone that even in these hardest times, and maybe mostly in these hardest times, are willing to give? You see, we read in the Gospel of Matthew as Jesus has just told them and predicted his death. In Matthew 16, he says, "For whoever wants to save their life will lose it. But whoever loses their life for me will find it." You want to know where life is? Jesus says, when you lose your life for me, then you find... Another way to say this maybe for us today would be, when you lay down your life, that's when you find life. And this woman lays down an expensive jar of perfume over Jesus. Judas refuses and says, I'm taking on more to see what I can get out of it. When you lay down your life, who do you think in this story is going to find life? This brings me to where I want us to close this morning. We've gotten this series, each week we're asking this question to get started. If asked, what do you want me to do for you? What would you say? This morning I want to change that sentence a little bit. Instead of asking, what would you want me to do for you? Maybe a better one is, are you willing to ask Jesus that very question? Jesus, what is it that you want me to do for you? In this story, we read something that's great that sets us up to begin to think about it. She has done a beautiful thing to me, Jesus says, about this woman. She did what she could. There it is. Whether you think you measure up or not, whether you think you're as good as someone else that you have opportunity on a regular basis to compare yourself to or not, that's not what Jesus is concerned about one bit. She has done a beautiful thing to me. And what was that beautiful thing that she did to Jesus? She did what she could. And so my question for you, are you willing to do what you can do? Are you willing to do what you can do? Take some time over these upcoming days, maybe in this afternoon if you get a quiet time at any point. Some of us have nothing but quiet time, and some of us are trying to figure out where quiet is again. But when you have that moment, maybe this is the question you need to ask yourself. Are you willing to do what you can do? Because the beautiful thing about this story is this. Do what you can do and then trust God to do the rest. And that is a beautiful thing. That right there, do what you can do and trust God to do the rest, is a beautiful thing about our amazing God. Let's pray. God, we come to you this morning aware that we stand in great need of someone stronger, someone smarter, someone who has been there and done that and been so much further along than we are. And we look around and the problem is, God, for us, our fellow people haven't been there. From person to person, God, we're not so far ahead that we can explain how to solve this problem that we have. And God, we're worried and we're anxious and we're scared. But you are the one who goes before us, who has been there. And because of that, God, we find good reason for faith in these days. God, wherever we find ourselves this morning, may we hear this word that Jesus spoke about this woman. A beautiful thing was done when she did all she could do. God, may we be a people who find ways to do what we can do, to not get lazy, to not get apathetic, to not quit, but to do what we can do because, God, you have gifted us. And we hit our limits and there's nothing else that we really can do. May we be a people who continue to trust in you through it all. It's in your name we pray. Amen. All right. I look forward to seeing you again soon.